engagement, and value, and performance, which is linked to that, it's linked to the culture. And the culture is really the ability to work together. And the together is the most difficult. Because as soon as you add one person to a team, so it starts with one, so with an N of one, normally you agree with yourself. You may have some debates, but in the end, you should agree with yourself, right? But as soon as you add a second person, the likelihood that there would be disagreements increase dramatically, right? So then the question is how to make sure that you create an environment that allow disagreements to be aired, allow this type of dialogue to exist, allow the conversations to be complete, because the more you grow in age, at least, the more the brain has developed defense mechanism, which is not so easy. So that's what is really a great passion of myself, to make sure that we can leverage that, right? And if I'm connecting that now to innovation, to go back to the brief of Philippe, for an industry like us, we have a couple of dilemma or ambiguity that we need to deal with. The first one is we do not have any brand loyalty. I mean, it's a little bit excessive to say that, but basically, patent expire after a certain period of time, we lose our sales, so we need to regenerate, sales on a regular basis. Not all the sales, but a lot of sales, right? So I'm always jealous, in a sense, when I look at the at beers. So when I see the Stella Annum is what, 1382 or something like that, right? Me, every 20 years, I need to change my brand and I need to restart from scratch, right? Because, no patent anymore, no sales anymore, right? So why innovation is critical for us? Because we cannot live with products that we have invented in the 13th century and continue to grow them and be happy with that. We need to refresh our brands, right? So that's one element. But the second part, which is really ambiguous with that, we have very long cycles. In order to create a new product, it's not like software, where basically every day you can update your program and you can take back the feedback of the customers and improve your software, and then every week you have a new software and you do the update on your device and you see the progress. For us, it took 10, 15 years to be on the market, and then every time we need to change, it takes a long time. So we have very long cycle, but we do not have brand loyalty because we have this patent cliff that we need to fulfill. So if and because we want to continue to grow, our focus should be on innovation. And so how to stimulate innovation? For us, for a company our size, stimulations about innovation is based on few simple things. The first and foremost element is that in order to innovate, and in order to be creative enough, in order to be able to discover differentiated medicine, we first need to make sure that we are able to connect the patient to the science. And that's the reason behind what you see here about patient value strategy. What do we mean by that is that the patient is not only the customer in the sense that the customer is our sense of purpose, is the reason why we are here. The patient should be and needs to be integrated in everything we are doing, from packaging to clinical development to, of course, science and to commercialization, because in the end of the day, the ability to make sure that the patient gets the value that he needs to have, it's only possible if we better understand the patient, which make very difficult for any type of company to cover all of the spectrum of the different diseases and the necessity to focus on certain pathology or certain diseases to really deeply understand them. So connecting the patient to the science that you have here on the poster, by the way. Why doing that? Because, very often the sequence of events was thought longitudinally. So initially, we have scientists that discover medicine, that give the medicines to developers, that do the development, that give them to commercial, and commercial push that to the physician, and the physician prescribes the drug to the patient, and the job is done. Well, in fact, no. The science needs to be connected to the patients initially, right? And more, human biology is starting to make a huge difference. The ability to understand genomics, which is also different of the patients. And by the way, we are 20 of us here, 20,000 genes in each of our genomes makes us completely different from each other. And so it's a complete dream or illusions to think that if, unfortunately, all of us would have the same disease, we would have the same disease. The expression of the disease, because of who we are today, would be different. And so if we are not able to understand deeper what makes difference versus different patients, then we are losing a huge opportunity. So we are moving from treating the group of patients on one criteria and try to improve this criteria to better understand what are the subpopulations of patients and try to define much more precise solutions that will much better match the need of some of them, right? Because of biomarkers, because of genetics, because of ability to find a biologic signature, right? So that's the connection between the patient and the science. And in the end of the day, it's this connection between a physician and a scientist that we will have a higher likelihood, we think, to innovate. And so in order to do that, we need to do the second thing, which is to be open. And the connectivity is a very important element. You know, even here, when we say we have now 3 products in epilepsy, we are probably very well positioned in terms of numbers of patients treated with our solution in epilepsy. We are probably a leader in epilepsy in the field. If not, we are not positioned number 1. But even being number 1 in one disease means probably that you know less than 1% of the knowledge that exists around the globe around these patients. So it's impossible to know everything internally. So the connectivity, the ability to build networks externally, it's not only a must, it's a necessity, it's a vital necessity for us to make sure that we continue to see opportunity where they are. And so the second element, above and beyond connecting the patient to the science from an innovation standpoint, is the ability to connect. And that's also the second reason why we need to focus, because there are so many good initiatives and new initiatives everywhere in the world that you need to focus and to understand what do you want to look for. So what is the piece that you think is missing in this patient's science connection, and where are the best in the world who are working on the piece which is missing in your puzzle? And so it's more a puzzle than an equation, but it's trying to find the different pieces of the puzzle. Some of them you have in-house, but some of them you need to connect, right? So innovation is about connecting the patient to the science, being able to innovate through that, and the secondly is making sure that you are open. And we have many partnerships. We have contact with universities here in Belgium, in the UK, in the US, everywhere. But it's not just partners, it's really working together on a certain issues or challenge. And this is where I think value is creating. It's when you are able to align that. So that's the focus of innovations. And in our model, on each step, what do we need to own ourselves here, and how we would like to create this. And that's also the reason why, from a cultural standpoint, because of this complexity of the environment, because of the volatility of the environment, because of the changes that we have, it's impossible to be successful in a culture where basically it's top-down and it's very directive or prescriptive. You need to define space, and it's one of our key principles, space with consistency. You need to define space by which you engage teams towards discovering, being innovative and creative enough, but giving them sufficient guidance and sufficient elements of thinking and reflecting so that they will go into the same direction. And that's the art of space with consistency, the art of creating a space of shared accountability where people will have an initiative which will, at the end, contribute to the overall value for the company. And that's all what it's about. So thank you for your interest.